Well, absolutely, Nastasia. So just a short while ago, the ministers concluded the session where they really emphasized the significance of the bilateral ties between South Africa and Nigeria. You do know that you have about 120 companies from South Africa based in Nigeria, but of course, something that is a bit of a concern for Foreign Affairs Minister of Nigeria, Minister Onyeama. He spoke about something that is very concerning, where we've seen a withdrawal of certain companies from South Africa and Nigeria, saying that it's quite important for the powerhouse of Africa to improve the conditions in terms of making sure that companies are able to thrive. But from the side of Minister Pandor as well, reaffirming South Africa's support for the Nigerian companies as well to come and invest in South Africa. But something also that is quite important, Nastasia, will have to be the issue around migration. We know that it's quite important. Quite a number of South Africans do go to Nigeria, and also the Nigerians do come to South Africa. So currently they are looking at the issue of making sure that e-visa is implemented for the Nigerians. But of course, at this point in time, we're joined by Mr. Onyeama with the Department of International Relations. So quite a very important day between the two countries, Mr. Onyeama. The issue around the implementation of the e-visa already started. How's the process?
Work in progress. The session of the midterm review of the 10th session of the Binational Commission has provided a platform for the two countries to track progress, in particular because this is a matter that is topical of the e-visa. Home Affairs has introduced a system, and we think that it's going to assist in addressing the concerns that have been raised over many years. These are two African giants. It's important that there are no hiccups in the relations between the two countries. I'm sure you would have heard the Foreign Minister of Nigeria making this point that the binational commission between the two countries, it's at the level of the two heads of state. For Nigeria, South Africa is the only country that they have such a mechanism with. It tells you how strategic the relations between the two countries are and how important Nigeria attaches to the relationship, the importance of the relationship they have with South Africa. So the issue of the e-visa for us is absolutely critical because we've had the complaints and the concerns from our fellow Africans. So it's being dealt with and it's being expedited.
Now also, Mr. Onyeama, let's look at the issue around the early warning mechanism. We do know that from time to time, we've seen the envoys going to engage with Nigeria in terms of assuring Nigeria that, South Africa is not a xenophobic country. But from time to time, unfortunately, we always see this tension simmering. As DECO, do you think today's engagement is one of the ways of really just making sure that the two countries are able to work together in so many spheres?
Yeah, you know my views on this subject. I do think that term is being abused and also used out of context many a times. It's almost in the words of the Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Naledi, it's used as a blunt object to silence people into raising certain concerns that we have. But the early warning mechanism that's been created between the two countries, Nigeria and South Africa, is meant to anticipate things as we pick up intel and information on what's simmering in the context of the issue you're raising, so that we prevent what has happened in the past. Although the point has to be made that what happened in the past wasn't particularly targeting nationals of a particular country. There was an explanation given as to what led to those flare-ups. But we think that given that this mechanism now exists of providing information prior to things getting out of control, we'll be able to arrest the situation. Perhaps just to emphasize, we don't believe that South Africans or even Nigerians are xenophobic for that matter. We Africans, we know where we come from, and it's in the interest of South Africa for Nigerians to thrive and prosper, whether they are here or back home. and that applies to all other Africans. We are a nation that welcomes our fellow Africans, so that term shouldn't be used because it's not applicable.
And just before I let you go, Mr. Onyeama, something that's quite interesting will have to be also the MOUs that were signed by the two ministers, one of them around the political consultations between these two giants.
Just say that again?
So in terms of the MOUs that were signed today, let's look at the very importance of those MOUs.
Well, the MOU that was signed was on political consultations between the two countries. This is absolutely critical because, South Africa and Nigeria, these are two countries when they speak, even on global developments, the international community sits and takes notice and listens. So it's important for us to consult each other, even on matters where we have to speak on behalf of the African continent. If you consider the fact that South Africa is the only African country in the G20, South Africa is the only African country in BRICS. So on many occasions, on pluri and multilateral platforms, when we speak, it's not just out of national interest for South Africa, but also we look at what is in the best interest of the continent. And when we do that, we then have to speak to other African countries. So that's where the MOU, like the one that we've signed, becomes important, so that we consult one another, not just with Nigeria, but also with other African countries, because we push the African agenda. What is in the interest of South Africa has to be good for the region of SADC, has to be good for the continent. We're all Africans, and we want to thrive and prosper together. And that's why that MOU is important.
All right. Mr. Onyeama, thank you so much indeed, sir, for your time. Of course, he's with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. And something that was quite interesting as well, well wishes for the Nigerians. We know that next year they'll be going to the elections, so hoping for free and fair and very peaceful elections as well.